other civilizations. Now even flea-ridden Vikings take us for fools. Rise up, topmost third, for our country!
I, Imperial Pharaoh of the 18th Dynasty, buried by my side, my loyal...
No time to waste. Egypt needs us.
Dare you hurt our people? Brothers, follow me!
Egypt must rise!
Dear Governors, welcome to Rise of Kingdoms. Rules of the first ROK Anniversary Grand Prix. The Grand Prix is divided into the following 3 stages: Team Registration, Team Confirmation, and the Grand Prix stage. Team registration will begin on August 19th. Players can assemble teams each with 30 to 35 players and register for the Grand Prix on the official website. Each captain can create a team on the Grand Prix website. Enter your team name, obtain a team invitation code. Other players can then join the team simply by entering the invitation code on the Grand Prix website. The registered teams will be ranked in order of total battle power. The top-ranked teams will qualify for the Grand Prix. Additionally, star teams will be invited to join the Grand Prix. Team registration closes on August 26th. The team rankings will not be updated after the registration closes. Our staff will contact the top-ranked teams accordingly and confirm their willingness to compete. At this point, if any team drops out, the spot will be filled by the team with the next highest ranking. Dear Governors, do take note of this. Don't miss out on the Grand Prix. The Grand Prix will adopt the gameplay used in Ark of Osiris. Participants will have access to the Rise of Kingdoms esports server and use the official super accounts provided by Rise of Kingdoms to engage in battles. 16 teams will pair up and battle in the best-of-1 single elimination format. The final 2 teams will compete in the final showdown on September the 30th. This Grand Prix offers great rewards. Each player of the champion team will receive the champion's ring, an iPad, and other rewards. Rewards also include game items and other prizes, such as the city theme for the champion of the Grand Prix. All other participants will receive gift cards and game items as rewards. During the Grand Prix, players can place bets on the Grand Prix official website and redeem rewards. Battle horns blare as the increasing wind rolls the sand. Which team will reach the pinnacle? Stay tuned.
so close at hand, your heart is soaring. Take hold of your command and march for glory. Hear the call of Seth and make your stand to the end. Hold on for dear life. To your soldier, faith, your dream. It burns deep inside. The need to reign supreme. It drives you. Seize the sacred shrines. Claim final victory. The blessing of the Nile will at last be won when ancient kingdoms rise. For glory!
What is going on, Governors? Chiskel here with my esteemed commentator Dragothian to cast the Osiris League Grand Prix Finals. This is going to be an absolutely hype match between, well, players from the same kingdom. 1V and New V are going to duke it out. They're both from the same kingdom, but they're absolutely top tier, dominating both sides of the bracket in this incredible tournament. Now, if you haven't already downloaded the PC version, do use the link down below, and there is going to be a QR code to download. Also, check out the code that you can enter in-game for some free stuff. Dragothian, what are your thoughts on today's matchup? And good morning, welcome.
Oh man, good morning, everyone. Really glad to be here. Of course, Chisco, my co-commentator with the bestest. We're going to be doing some fun stuff today. Obviously, 1V plus New V equals the same kingdom-ish, right? I think that people can join from other kingdoms into these teams. However, pretty sure they didn't really need any help from outside. 34 has been absolutely dominant when it comes to Osiris League, Ark of Osiris in general, extends to the field in KVK, and certainly looking forward to seeing who will come out on top. Both of these teams have really dominated, really across the board here. A couple hiccups along the way, but ultimately securing the victory in the last 10 minutes and securing their places in the finals. I'm interested to see who's going to win.
Yeah, I mean, there were some incredibly top-tier teams along the way, and I think that this really is a testament to the power of having a kingdom with lots of great Osiris League players. And, you know, look, in regular Osiris League, you might be able to point to commanders and equipment and say, well, if we had better commanders and equipment, maybe we would have won. But in this, it's all been equalized. So these are your top tier players in Osiris gameplay. Now, what I'm really hyped to see is the sorts of things they'll be using and how they're going to play out this match, because obviously these players are, in a broader sense, teammates with each other. So they know each other's strategies. They know what they're going to do. Do they counter what the other is doing? And do they know the other team is going to counter that? So there's a counter? I mean, I don't know. You see where I'm going with the ways in which the strategies might evolve to try to do something different to edge out the win here. Because what's at stake? Not only is there, if I'm not mistaken, Dragothian, an iPad Pro for the winners of this matchup, but in my eyes, more importantly, they got a ring, baby, and it's not a ring like I wear on this finger.
Yeah, it's all about that hardware.
A blingin' ring. And that's not one ring per team. I believe that's a ring per player. So, man, you definitely want to emerge the victor in this, because, hey, you might be able to buy yourself an iPad Pro, but I don't think you can buy that ring anywhere.
Yeah, that hardware is really what I think everybody's all about. And if there's one thing Rise of Kingdoms is not known for, it's sharing. So I do believe that everybody is definitely going to get one on the winning team. And look, I mean, these are, I think I saw a comment in the chat that was pretty, kind of rung home for me. This is the left and the right hand of Kingdom 34. You've got New V and 1V all coming from the same location. What do hands do, right? They clap. They clap. So let's see if they clap in the middle here, and let's see if they beat each other up to a pulp, and we get to enjoy the show as they're doing it. So Chisco, we got today's matchup, obviously Newbie versus 1V. We've waited for this for what, 3 weeks now, right?
Yeah, it's been a lot of matches leading up to this moment. 16 teams entered into this Osiris League Anniversary event, and only one will emerge the champion. We're now down to the final 2. So this should be an incredible matchup. Very evenly matched players on both teams duking it out. And of course, as we look at the main players in the lineups of these two teams, I personally will also be looking at the main commanders used on the field, because for me, a part of the enjoyment of studying these sorts of matches, watching and getting out the popcorn, is that not only are they entertaining and there's some just really incredible moments, but also there's a lot to learn that you can take back to your Osiris gameplay. And I know simply having the opportunity to watch these matches and cast with you has definitely elevated my own Osiris gameplay. So I'll be really trying to get a peek at commanders. And, just as a tip for everybody that's out there, especially if you're free to play, I will point out that pretty much every single player on both of these teams, despite having access to every commander in the game, are going to bring Ethelfled to the brawl. And I think that's very common to see because she's just so darn powerful. So for those of you that don't have access to every commander, even though these players do, they're still using a free-to-play commander that is really, really strong. Now, of course, we'll see if that pans out in the way that we expect here. Captains and key combatants still on the screen here, and in just a moment, we enter into the matchup, and the fireworks begin. Players now porting into the Osiris matchup here. A quick reminder, you see that code on your screen. Enter it in game for a few goodies. 2 minutes and 30 seconds till the match begins. This portion of the match is really a choreographed dance where players enter in the sequence in which they have been instructed. This is for a number of reasons, but in part to make sure that players are close to where they need to go and close to the rally leaders that they need to join. I know I personally have been in an Osiris match where I was supposed to join a rally, and it was going to take me longer than a minute to actually get into the rally. Now, for those of you newer to the game, there is a 60-second timer. That's 1 minute to actually launch your rallies in Ark of Osiris. So that is much, much faster paced than what you're used to in KVK, because this is a 60-minute battle. Dragothian, as the remaining players poured in here, what do you think the score is going to be like in this game? Do you think it's going to be a less than 5,000 point game? Or do you think the spread is going to be more than 5,000 points?
I think as I start to kind of unfold or unpackage my thoughts on these two strategies going head to head, to answer your question, I think it's going to be less than 5,000 points. And the reason I say that is because, again, both of these teams really kind of hailing from the same place. They have all shared the same strategies. They've all really played together for the most part, whether it be in KBK or in Osiris League systems in the past and currently. So, it's a matter of who can robot better, right? Who can execute better and play the match, play the strategy the most effectively. And usually when you see the same strategy going head to head, I mean, it's an equal game, right? Both sides are equidistant away from all their structures. Both sides have the same access to the same things. So there's really no way that technically, unless people change their strategy up, which I will be looking for, that it should be much of a blowout here. Both teams are very solid. Both teams have really played throughout this Grand Prix system pretty much the same way. They've executed on their arc battle plan in the middle, and that's really what I'm looking forward to the most. Who wins the middle fight? Because both of these teams have been really dominant in the middle using the same strategies that have been successful in the Osiris League system.
Yeah, I do think the mid brawl is the key. With 5 seconds till the matchup begins, your Osiris Anniversary Grand Prix starts now. Players now departing from their cities will be on the lookout for T1 Siege. If you see some T1 Siege head out the gate, know that they're doing some provisioning right from the start. There are important points to be had there, but I think Dragothian and I have both noticed a number of these teams have moved away from the opening provisions, which I think is definitely an interesting play. Rather than to start to get that points engine running, they send those marches downfield to cause chaos, and I'm all for it. We see the rallies now on screen, obelisks and outposts. So there are only obelisks and outposts to rally at the start of this, but not only can you rally the ones on your side, you can rally the ones on the enemy side. And although nobody rallies the outposts on their own side of the map, that doesn't make sense, they're so close. It is an interesting way to convey troops downfield to the enemy outposts and maybe get some occupation. Downside being, the capacity of an outpost is only 500,000. Now, at the start of this matchup, if you're newer to Osiris gameplay, the thing that you're looking for is the timing of the capture of these obelisks. T1 troops with the fastest commander combos in the game are now on their way, trying to get to these obelisks as fast as possible. This will dictate when teams can teleport, and in turn, how they can set the tone of the match. There's hard push being used by both teams at the exact same time. Feels a little bit late to me. As a reminder to everybody, you do need to have your hard push activated prior to the rally departing from your city in order to get the full benefit and enjoy the extra march speed, which is what that is here for in the start. And also, that extra little boost is giving you a faster capture of these structures. So now you can see, really, as Dragothian was saying here, almost identical mirrored gameplay with the exception of one outpost in red not being captured on the side of 1V. As a reminder, we'll be referring to these teams as New V in blue and 1V in red. Dragothian, any observations or things you think we should sort of look out for in this first encounter?
Yeah, for certain. So I have been kind of paying attention as you were unfurling everything that was going on in front of us. A difference in rally count at the very beginning. It looked like 1V had 6 rallies to start off with, whereas Nuvi only had 4. So it looked to be interesting, maybe a little bit of a dynamic change when it comes to the strategy. One team deciding not to go towards the obelisks or the outposts, and one team deciding to go for at least 2, if not 3. So this could be a little bit of a strategy change, and maybe they're trying to maybe test a little bit of strategy out in the finals, which would be kind of crazy. But maybe they're trying to say, hey, but let's we know what we can do, right? We know the base strategy that we all use. Maybe let's try and do some changes and see if one ends up beating out the other. The best way to beat ourselves is to beat ourselves with the other opponent that's already us. So we do see positioning for 1V, positioning forward here in front of the Desert Altar, rally breaking in front of the Desert Altar as well, trying to make sure they have as many troops right up front to stall this New V push on the bottom side. And conversely, top side, Chiskel, New V a little bit behind of their Desert Altar on the top lane here. 1V at least having a good contingent with more coming up from the south. This is good positioning for 1V. They're going to be able to contest this Desert Altar on the top lane a lot more easily than New V on the bottom lane against one. This is going to be very hard to do. New V, 1V, New V, 1V. New V will be harder contesting that 1V Desert Altar on the bottom lane. As we're seeing on the top lane, though, again, 1V getting a solid surround on the New V Desert Altar and positioning themselves appropriately to possibly take both of these Desert Altars at the beginning of this match.
Yeah, I really like the 1V positioning as you see on screen. They have their hand on that altar, ready to cap that thing in the 55 seconds when it opens. But the volume of marches here for New V in the left side picture, I think is overwhelming. I don't know that I'll actually be able to capture this thing. And as I mentioned earlier, I like to make observations about the commanders. If you're a free-to-play player, you are probably happy to see a lot of double C all over the screen here, available to you in gold keys. Simply being able to get to where you want to go with the mobility talents is really valuable, even though you lose a lot of punch. I mean, really a dramatic amount of punch by using that commander as the primary. And we do see, as promised, a bunch of Ethelfled cruising around the field, a little bit of Ethelfled Trajan, and a little bit of Ethelfled William, which I found to be surprising. We've got just a small amount of time until these open, 10 seconds. Ideally, this would be an even split based on the map positions, but let's see if the altars fall to hands from opposing teams. Here we go. Capture and capture. Looking at the map, that actually does look like it's even, but the Shrine of War in favor of New V. So they've got 2 Shrines of War, as a number of buildings are blinking, including Obelisk, hello, also Shrine of Life, and 2 altars on the top side of the map. Now, I do see we've got a Naboo garrison captain, a Nevsky garrison captain. Yeah, this is not the garrison captain you're looking for in this situation. And in fairness, there is a balance here of marching garrison captains down the field and also having fighting marches, because you better believe the Where's Waldo of finding and swarming out the garrison captains is very real. Here you can see exactly that phenomena. In fact, there's 3 garrison captains that were swarming that structure to help take it back. And now, proper captain in there. Big advantage for blue at that sky altar. Looking around here, Boudica captain. Again, Jedi mind tricks in full effect. This is not the captain you're looking for.
The structures have been going back and forth over these last 20 seconds as this structure game really starts to kick off. We've seen altars drop back and forth. One constant has been the side of New V. They've really held their own desert altar and sky altar pretty soundly. Now they've been taking the sky altar and desert altar back and forth from 1V. I did see 1V make a major push very early after the initial desert altar fight. So as soon as the desert altar was captured by their own team, they immediately, their entire open field started moving towards the sky altar and the Shrine of War. I'm curious if that was maybe a mistake as far as going off early, or again, if they're just staying on schedule. And I do see a lot of marches going back with sad faces for 1V above this desert altar or sky altar fight, which again could be the reason why we haven't seen New V really lose any of their structures. They do have a loss on the top with their Shrine of Life, but they'll gladly do that in favor of taking 1V Shrine of Life and 1V's sky altar in exchange. Certainly looking very favorable for New V here as we start to see the initial capture points start to tick in favor of New V. These desert altar initial capture points is again worth 750 points, which for a match that could be decided in less than 5,000 points is critical for you to secure for your team. 1V continuing to flip-flop the structures again as we creep closer and closer to this middle fight. As we go to the middle, it's like they read my mind. It's beautiful. New V already positioning in the middle behind the Temple of Osiris. I'm not sure if there's anything a little farther south. I'm not sure if we can go a little farther down there, but I'm not sure if 1V had been positioning yet or not. But again, structure game still very contentious with just over 4 minutes left, and rallies firing like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this is the sort of position you want off the rip in this fight. New V taking a healthy lead, but that margin ultimately shrinking down quite a bit as things sort of settle down. So you only get those first capture points if you hold it for the required duration. And although New V was able to contest these structures and cause a lot of havoc, which you see in the score reflecting that they've got some extra points here, it was not quite as many extra first capture points as it looked initially here. So the structure game has evened up, which is sort of what you want to see going into a big mid-brawl, because this is the moment. In 3 minutes and 30 seconds, I mean, it's big popcorn time in the middle. We see what skills they'll ultimately decide to use. We'll see which team ultimately wins as we all try to decipher what is the secret sauce that makes these teams so strong in the middle. You know, Dragothian, if you had to guess, what are the things that make these teams better than any of the other teams in the tournament in taking these middle fights?
Yeah, I think you said the key word, and it's a plural word. And you said things. There is no one thing that will basically be the secret sauce, like you just talked about. It's a combination of things. I think first off, when we go into it, right, certainly commander choice is a big deal, which is why we like to call out commander choices when we're looking at the mid fight and the positioning around it. A lot of XY, a lot of Guan, a lot of AoE commanders, even to a fault, guys. I mean, there are single target commanders that are very, very strong in this game that just are not brought to the middle because they don't cause raw damage across the board. It's only to one target. It's not about taking down one player. It's about taking down 30 players. It's about taking down 20 players with 5 marches each inside that middle fight. So obviously one, commander pairings. Number 2 is their murder ball integrity. You'll see here the team that tends to spread out more once the initial fight engages is the team that loses. The closer knit your team is, the tighter your ball is inside of this middle fight, the more AoEs are going to hit the same players, which means the more AoEs are going to be killing marches off the field. Again, Guan is useful with 100% health or 5% health because he has an AoE silence. The quicker you can get those off the field, the better. If you leave those 5% Guans out, if you leave those 5% Ethelfleds out, they will still do damage to your team, not necessarily from a number standpoint, but from a debuff and a buff standpoint. So that's why it's critical to absolutely sad face all of these marches on the field. 1v looking very strong, by the way, Jiskel, as they're coming up from the bottom lane here, looking maybe a little heavier than Nuvi. Nuvi looked like they had the right positioning, the right player count, but 1v really pouring a lot into the middle with basically the structure game being even-ish.
I mean, if you're 1v, I feel like you just pull the trigger. It's time to engage. One thing that I do observe is that there is really a wide spread between the front of the 1v murder ball and the back of that murder ball. And so it's a little unclear to me if they're going to be able to get a really nice engage here where everybody starts the fight at the same time. And on the topic of timing, I just feel like they really lost a brief window of advantage here as a bunch of players are climbing into this fight for New V. I would say from a numbers standpoint, New V's got the advantage, but look at that little move they did, pulling back and then engaging. I really like that in this instance because New V needs all those players to get into the fight. So the fact that they were able to stall the fight for just a few seconds more and get more of their bodies in while forcing the 1v players to keep walking, I think was a nice little maneuver. That is, little maneuver. We'll see, though, if that's enough to actually get the job done in this mid-fight. Hard to tell
I'm
what's
looking
really
at the ball
happening.
here. Just cool. You know, I'm looking at the ball here, and it's kind of hard to see, but I mean, you don't see it expanding very much. So again, both teams really holding their murder ball integrity when it comes to now with the arc being pulled out, it's going to start stretching. But you know, 1v grabbing it at least for a few moments before it being dropped there. It is on the 1v side, so that's very helpful for the red team here, with Nuvi starting to come across the threshold of that Temple of Osiris, trying to get that arc and grab it back. Right now, nobody grabbing it, just fighting. I do see a lot more sad faces going back for the Nuvi team than 1v, though. Maybe it had to do with being able to hold
exactly right.
their ball integrity. Yeah, I think so.
I think this is a slam dunk here for 1v. I mean, they look like they have more bodies, and those sad faces tell a pretty stark tale for New V. Struggling in this particular battle here, 1v walking away with that arc. Got to be feeling pretty good about how that first brawl went from a structure standpoint. They really maintained integrity of those structures. Only the Shrine of War and a couple outposts flipped blue. So if you're in red, you got this arc, you didn't lose the main structures. If you shift gears in this part, and this is a very difficult thing to do well, so this is very important to watch. But if 1v in red shifts gears well here, then they may be on the defensive, a little bit of a back foot, because they have all these low health marches not refreshed, whereas New V is about to punch with a bunch of full health, fully refreshed marches. But if New V can't get a lot of big point buildings here, then this was a great W for 1v.
Yeah, I agree. I will say it was kind of curious why they were pulling back towards the Shrine of War that was blue, but now I see that it does, in fact, go back to the original owner, 1v. And now it seems a lot more of a sound strategy. I was a little worried that there would be a contentious fight here by the Shrine of War, but it is looking like it's going towards still... Well, I mean, look, it's looking like it's going towards the Shrine of War more than the Obelisk. Don't you agree?
Yeah, it's very surprising to me the way they're running this arc. To me, this signals they're really confident that they've got this thing locked up. I will point out, however, those 3 marches resetting on that Shrine of War could simply turn on the carrier and knock it down. Now, I don't know that they want to do that, but it would be very simple for them to do. That carrier has basically been left alone. Like, you got the Ark, you know where it's supposed to go. Have a nice trip, buddy. You see yourself to the obelisk, please. You know the way.
My goodness.
We don't have to remind you.
My goodness.
He's even getting hit by the AoE of the marches swarming the garrison. It almost took down the carrier.
I know. I mean, 1v pushing on the bottom side here, though, Chisco. I mean, look, this is ideal for 1v. They are down right now by 400 points from a points per minute standpoint, with 30 points in New V's favor per minute as well. But that's going to start evening up. Although, I will say again, look, 3 rallies on the field, 2 now, 1 looks like it just went down, but maybe not down. Maybe it secured that Sky Altar on the top lane. 3 altars now in favor of New V. They know they need to get the structure game heading in their favor. Now 180 points per minute advantage for New V. But again, this 3,000 points in 1V's pocket is a sound investment. And again, with this going into the mid game here very shortly after this next arc is secured, I'm going to see who's going to be switching strategies a little bit. Maybe somebody's going to go more towards the structure game. Again, with this middle fight being so even-ish, I mean, it looked pretty dominant by 1v this last time. But again, I think that was really just a numbers thing. 1v really focusing on the mid fight there. I don't think it was nearly as even as it may have looked at the very beginning. 1v sending heavy forces to the middle to secure that first arc. But New V countering with 3 altars in their color right now. And also almost lost that obelisk at the top lane too for an extended period of time. Looks like the obelisk does go back.
Both obelisks.
Yeah,
I mean, 1v in red took both obelisks from the opposing team. Now, I don't know what you do when every city's 450 million power, but I suppose you could teleport over and be a little bit disruptive, although these teams have choreographed very detailed routines and routes for every player to run. So teleporting to the opposing side is really not a part of that calculus. It does mess with the flow of what the team is expected to be doing. So in this sort of game, I just don't know that it makes a lot of sense, as fun as it might be, as disruptive as it might be. Now, interesting to pick up the Shrine of Life here for New V. Obviously, this is just going for points, as neither team needs to heal any troops. So when you think about the value of a structure like the Shrine of Life, particularly in this game mode where they've got enough troops that they don't need to do any healing, that building really diminishes greatly in value. I mean, look, you're playing to win. You don't play for the healing speeds anyways, but there are teams that will try to take both of those at the same time and then tell everybody to heal. Especially if you fight really hard in KVK and don't have any troops left. I wouldn't know in our kingdom what that's like, ... But you know how it goes, man. When you're low on troops, sometimes you gotta blast heals. Not in this game mode, though. Not in this tournament, rather. They're just here
not at all
for the points.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And I will say, by extension, so certainly the points are really the key here, but look at the location. So consistently, New V is taking the outside lane structure. So not only is it denying points for 1v, and if they can hold it long enough, gaining points for New V, but it's also making troops have to go out there and address it, right? And that's farther away from the mid fight. Now, again, 1v is in a very strong position here because, like we're seeing on the screen, they hold the arc at their own obelisk area. So they have control of the pace of the match. They know when the next arc is going to get started on the timer because they're the ones that have to capture it. So, we're looking at 3 altars now, New V's color. So that's going to help them from a points per minute standpoint. Now they're up by 800 points overall. But again, 3,000 points in the pocket of 1v really helps nullify that advantage right now. 1v really is looking likely to go ahead and re-solidify their structure game on the home front while pushing forward to try and disrupt. And then inside of that mechanism that they've done 1,000 times, capture that arc so that they're at the advantage. They're then in their timing. Their timing is key. Knowing when their timing is going to happen, they're pushing while this arc captures, knowing they need to go to the middle in 7 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it looks like. They know when things are going to happen, so they can do it themselves. And that's why this is such a strong position for 1v, because New V now has to rely on 1v to set and dictate the pace. As we look at, as it move, I don't think it's going to get captured. I think it was moving past that city.
You know, I really like New V in blue, their ability to sort of capture and disrupt some of these altars. I mean, they've got 3 altars right now, and they're really sort of doing the incremental value gain and point gain that they need to make up for having lost that first arc. Now, it really is a bummer to be down on points going into the final arc of the game. Really any arc, but the final arc especially. Because then you've got the weird push-pull of needing to hold on to your structures while also scoring an arc, which opens yourself up, as we saw earlier in this tournament, to having the opposing team trick you. They fake you out. Looks like they're going mid. They actually push buildings. And if that point differential is too low, you run the risk of losing purely on buildings. They don't even have to try for the final arc. So both teams really want to try to get ahead, but if they can't get ahead, keep the score as close as possible so that both teams have to play honest for the final arc. Because if they don't, it's a really dangerous situation.
Yeah, that's well put. I think that at the end of the match, that's really when it's critical to own the pace of the game. Obviously, you want to do it as often as possible, but certainly as we get closer to the end, that's definitely going to be even more critical. Like you said, earlier in the match, we've seen a lot of teams be in the lead, and then 10 minutes later, they're down by 10,000 points. It's actually pretty crazy to see a switch like that from a point standpoint. But speaking of points, we're looking at this Desert Altar right here, and Nuvi held this Desert Altar for a considerable amount of time. In fact, so much that that 3,000 point arc ended up turning into a 1,500 point lead only for 1v. So they did nullify some of those points gained from the mid fight for 1v, which is exactly what they needed to do. Now they do need to take the offensive and ultimately hold their own structures, keep gaining 1v structures, and then again, Nuvi's going to have to win a mid fight, I think, to win this match.
Yeah, for a long time I've said you've either got to win the building game or you've got to win the arc game, and ideally it's both, but at least one. And it's not yet clear to me which team will be sort of the victor in both categories. I mean, it honestly could go either way. I do want to call attention to the fact that early in the tournament, people were using a variety of garrison commanders, but you see a sort of unanimous selection of Jad YSS here. What do you think the Jad YSS is bringing that makes it the most preferred garrison in this game mode?
So I think really 2 key factors here. One is the fact that with YSS, you can put any troop inside. I think that's critical with any garrison that you use. You know, a lot of people will fall into the trap of using, you know, Zenobia Flavius, or with the new Jan Ziska coming out, it could be Jadwiga Jan or Jan Jadwiga, or, you know, again, Artemisia behind Amanatori. Those are troop-specific garrisons to make them realize full effectiveness. Whereas with YSS, as long as you got a march around, it will impact greatly not only the count inside of the garrison, but also the damage that it outputs. And really the biggest factor, I think, is the fact that it's speedy. We've talked about it over and over in this tournament. Speed wins these matches. If you're not there, you can't garrison. And if you're going to be garrisoning a structure that's Jadwiga YSS led, you're going to likely be bringing cavalry, which is the fastest unit in the game. Also usually contains the fastest commanders to get them there. It's just a sound strategy to be able to refresh not only the garrison, but also the reinforcements much more quickly than you know, an infantry commander. I've never seen a slower march in my life than Zenobia Flavius. It's just mind-racking why it's so slow.
Yeah, you really do need to sort of city hop to put that garrison into a KVK flag, but can't say that I'd recommend it for all the reasons you shared in a game mode like Osiris League. So I agree that the Jad YSS is a great garrison, and I'm surprised to see a little Khan running around the field here. An oldie but goodie. I guess the march speed and just diversity of cab commanders here is worth it. At least that's the choice 1v is made. And I wonder, with 3 minutes and 55 seconds till this next arc, the map looking relatively even, do both teams get one final push onto an altar and then just call it and go mid? Or do they just say, you know what, we all just go mid?
I mean, we're less than 4 minutes away. I mean, this mid fight really creeped up on me with looking at the structure game and all these movements on the top and bottom lanes here. I'm seeing 1v already positioning in the middle. I'm not sure if Nuvi is doing the same. I would love, by the way, that Genghis Khan to be really a march that I've been promoting on my own channel with Genghis Khan and the new commander Joan behind it. I haven't seen many or any Joans on the map, so maybe I'm not sure if that's been added or not. I haven't really been paying attention. That's something maybe we should have covered as professional commentators.
No,
but
no Jones.
So there's no
Jones.
No
They've
Jones.
not
Okay,
changed
so that's
commander
a good
availability.
Okay, so that's good to know for sure for everybody. No Joan, no Jan, so that's something to take into account. But I did see a lot of movement speed heavy marches with that person who was running that Genghis Khan. So there was an Ethelfled, there was a double C primary. Those were likely movement speed based marches for whatever purpose that was. But we do see the middle fight here starting to at least, look at each other. And now we do see Nuvi starting to position forward, seeing their field dominance from a number standpoint coming into play from this top lane over here. 1v might be a little bit behind with the overall numbers. I think they might have arrived here first, but they're not here with their full contingent, and it looks like they may have to actually back off a little bit. Nuvi really positioning strongly in front of the Temple of Osiris with 2 minutes left until this arc spawns. Again, we said it earlier, they need to have an arc. They're down by 1,700 points. 1v is not a team that gives up structure points easily. They've given up a little bit, but they did it to take a big chunk of points with that first arc. It's playing in their favor right now. Can Nuvi take away and steal this 3,500 point arc away from 1v, or is 1v going to be able to go and show that same dominance that they saw in the first mid fight and clean up the blue team?
I feel like Nuvi has done a good job here getting position, but we're not yet at the point where it's a problem for 1v to be so far away from the temple. But we are very, very rapidly entering the phase of the game where it is a problem that 1v is so far from the temple. So I will be really curious to see when they ultimately break and start this fight. It looks like Nuvi falling back a little bit here. 1v starting to push forward. The thumbs up being given on the screen by the teammates saying, hi everybody, let's roll. They are starting to move forward. Bit of spread between the players in the front and the back. More players arriving for 1v. One more player arriving for Nuvi. They are starting to now close this distance, but with only 45 seconds till the arc spawns in, they've really got to start this fight. Here's the flip to counteroffensive, the alliance skill, giving them 10% more defense. And now they roll in. War drums activated. Mystical formation activated. Looking to see if there's a bigger ability used. Nothing. I mean, what do you think,
yet.
Drago?
Yeah, nothing yet. Both teams, here we go. Heaven's Grace. I'm not sure if that was to the death or not. I don't think it was. It looked like a horse instead of a... Maybe that was Relentless Siege.
Let me pull the name of that one for you.
I think it's Relentless Siege.
It was an ability we don't normally see, which is, either a dramatic fat finger or a signaling that actually one of these teams is not playing for the arc. If that was hard push, then that means one of these teams is going for buildings, not arcs.
Yep. Yeah,
I think it's all either those sad faces running back.
Siege.
Yeah. Let me get the picture here in just a second. It's loading up. And I'll have this answer for you.
While you're pulling that, Nuvi is
was.
really looking good on the structure game here. I mean, look, they've already got an extra altar and shrine. There's probably no accident that that's happening. I do see 1v again winning this mid fight. This is not going to likely be the last arc. I think it depends on when it actually gets picked up. Technically, 1v could make it to where it's basically impossible if they at least put up a 1 or 2 minute fight in the middle for the arc not to get captured if there is a third one. So if 1v does capture this one, it looks like they just picked it up and are moving with it. They could potentially control the rest of this match from an arc standpoint. Now, again, knowing that Nuvi has already switched to the structure game, they own 2 structures already, and are likely pushing more with 6 rallies up on the rally meter on the bottom right.
So it was Relentless Siege. This skill effects last for 10 minutes. Upon victory, the time required to occupy a structure is reduced by 60 seconds, and the rally's counterattack damage is increased by 50%.
Yeah.
So they, very clearly signaled, you can take this arc, we're going buildings, but that didn't work, Drago. Like, that really, really didn't work. They don't even have a single significant structure from 1v at this moment. 1v is just chilling here with this arc and their structures.
Yeah, they may even be looking... if I was 1v, I'd actually see if maybe that blue march coming in from the top will pick it up. Resetting the timer would be great for 1v, I think. If they can make this a 2-arc match, they really can control the pace and dictate the gameplay for the rest of this match with 25 minutes left. Obviously, it has a 15-minute timer whenever it's full. Now it's down to 13:40. But again, it takes another 8 minutes for it to spawn, and then usually another 2 minutes or so with a clean breakaway to capture another arc. So it's basically 10 minutes to capture an arc from the timer, and basically we're looking at about a 2 or 3 minute delta between those two numbers. So if they can get Nuvi to go ahead and grab this and reset it, I think that would actually be in 1V's favor. But again, like you said, with Relentless Siege being popped, Nuvi has dictated what they're going to do, and that's going to be structure game, structure game, structure game, and wasn't shown any really benefit just yet. It is a 10-minute skill. So you're going to see hopefully some benefit as they start to really pump these rallies out, getting that counterattack damage up alongside of keeping that 2-minute timer to secure structures.
Yeah, it's a 10-minute skill, but that timer started 5 minutes ago, Like, they really are losing their window, in my estimation, to really capitalize on what was undoubtedly a forfeit of the mid-brawl in exchange for a building game that they simply didn't execute on. Now, what I am really intrigued by, however, is this regrouping and collapsing on the arc. Drago, I think there is a 20% chance that Nuvi takes the arc, takes the Shrine of War, caps that arc, and says, thank you very much for the points.
Yeah, 1v really kind of going to default here and taking it to the top side obelisk again, and Nuvi's not ready to do that yet. 1v kind of, I don't know if abandoning is the right word, but maybe resetting and is just starting to get their marches back in. That could definitely be the play here. But I think you're right. There is a chance with this much blue team on the map around this arc, and ultimately that Shrine of War is vulnerable. It's only a 1 million garrison structure. You do have 1.5 in the altars, but only 1 million troops can go inside of a Shrine of War, so it makes it a lot more easy to swarm down, especially if you have a nice solid heavy damaging rally. It's going to be harder to reinforce with proper troops. So again, I think Nuvi does have a play here. They're actually making this really a second arc fight, and they're pouring more and more troops in. This is looking very blue, whereas before it was almost entirely red. Just, well, I think that number needs to go up a little bit. Nuvi actually has the arc now and is moving it towards their own side.
Yeah, there's really like a 2-minute window to get this done. Arc carrier showing a little bit of confusion. Go left, go right. They don't know which lane to run that thing. The reason I say there's sort of a 2-minute window, maybe less at this point, is that although Blue came in with a big force and did a lot of sad facing, they can't refresh back to this fight. Not nearly as fast as Red can. So 1v in Red will whittle this force down and will regain control of this arc if it does not make serious moves. And right now, it's simply not moving. New carrier, trying to see if they zig or zag here. Which way are they going to go, left or right? So far, it looks like they have cut right. Yeah, they're running back by the Shrine of War, perhaps to bring it back to their own altar. So, in some ways, the safer play is just score the darn thing at the Shrine of War if you can get a hold of it. This team seems to be opting instead to just try to run it back their own side along the wall of the temple area And that arc is getting a healthy run right now. I mean, that thing has moved a lot further than 1V would like to have allowed. More 1V arriving now to try to disrupt that carrier from going further. 3 people looking to pick up the arc right now. Who will have the fastest hands? Looks like it's New V yet again, looking to run that arc even further toward their side. Getting a nice little carry right now. Centering up that arc ever so slightly and running it back toward their own side. You know, personally, I'd hug that thing a little more to the left. Try to keep it further and further away from the opposing side, but still a safe direction. And this is the part, Drago, that I was warning about, where New V is going to start to get whittled down, and the people refreshing over and over will get the edge by virtue of the distance, but really crucial pickups here as the carrier falls yet again, inching this thing closer and closer to safety. Chat, who do you think is getting this arc? Drago, who do you think is getting this arc?
Well, before I say that, I will say Nuvi's doing the right thing by going on the top lane. It gives that mountain as a barrier for the people coming from the bottom on 1V's side to have to go around the bottom of the mountain to actually arrive at the arc itself. That's extra march time. That's helping next gen 1V, New V, get this arc closer and closer to what used to be their desert altar, but it is now, in fact, 1V who owns that entire top lane except for the obelisk. New V is putting everything into this arc right now. I think they may actually capture it when it comes to bringing it back to their side, but I don't know if they're actually going to be able to capture it because they don't have any structures on the top side to take it into, and now they're going to have to focus structures and hold the arc and move the arc at the same time, while also denying the field of 1V from stopping the arc from moving and ultimately grabbing it back. There's going to be a lot for New V to do. They gave up a lot to get this arc in their side of the map right now. They gave up almost all of their buildings, top and bottom lane, and now again 1V has a 500 point per minute difference, and they've had that, by the way, Chisco, for about 4 minutes now. So now 1V has almost a 2,000 point lead, where 1V has a 2,000 point lead, whereas New V had this thing tied up about 2 minutes ago. But with the points per minute going heavily in favor of 1V and next gen 1V, New V really trying to grab this structure back so they can actually capture the arc. There it is.
Oh my god, they can do
wow.
it. Altar is theirs. Astronomic carry by Double C's down the field. Passing that baton, carrier to carrier. Arc is down in front of the altar. Now it's just a matter of picking up the arc. They score that thing real fast. If you're 1V, you have a real conundrum. You've got to take the garrison, you've got to get the arc, and you have to do all of it right now. Faster hands, however, for New V, they're bringing that arc back, looking for a spot in the altar, but no, going back to the obelisk instead. That line running closer to safety rather than trying to score right away. It's a bold move. This has been in the carry. I said there was a 20% chance, Drago, and sometimes you just roll the dice and land the number you need. But here we go, that arc going further and further back toward the New V side. 1V sitting here thinking, we got this, GG easy, 2 arcs in the bag. But then, as I said, they left that carrier shockingly alone. They got ambushed, and now we find ourselves in this situation that is really, really stressful for 1V. Who will pick up this arc, and what will 1V even be able to get done here? I mean, can they both take the structure and then score it on the opposing side? My goodness. This has evolved in a way that you love to see in this kind of a final. Here we go, 1V with the arc. This is what they need to do, but where can they take it? Not far enough. Big brawl all over again on top of the altar. Now, yeah, I was going to say, looking at the time left in the match, do you use abilities like you're in a mid-fight? Because I think the answer could be yes. So far, the teams are voting with their points and saying, no, be chill, bro. We got another arc coming, maybe. Let's not use any points. I mean, if you're in blue, you could control the pace of this final arc. You could say, hey, this is it. The final arc, baby. We'll take the couple 1,000 points of edge this will give us and call it a day. But instead, they didn't use any points. I mean, they basically signaling,
They
we
didn't
got
need
this
to.
thing. Yeah, we
Yeah, they
got
didn't
this
need to.
thing.
Yeah, I would say that's the right play. And now, again, New V being very, I don't want to say greedy because, that has a negative connotation, but, lesser teams, right? This is the cream of the crop, right? Lesser teams would have been like, just shove it in the Desert Altar. Just get it in there. We need the points. We don't want them to get it. But no, New V, confident in their abilities, confident in their situation, decided to bring it back to the obelisk. And again, this is twofold. One, they have the points now. But two, like you said, they control the pace of this match. This is now a 2-arc game, I think. Provisioning is going to be key. Structure game is going to be key. And now, again, New V has 3 altars back. This is basically New V's game to lose now, guys. 1V had such a dominating position. New V now really bringing it back from the brink, having all their own structures for the most part, -2 outposts, disrupting the points per minute. Again, 470 to 450 in favor of 1V right now. We're seeing hard push used for a reason. Structure game is the name of the game right now. Structures and provisioning. 1V losing that arc to New V. 20%. I don't think so, Jiskel. You had the right idea, but that number much, much higher. 100% now. Obviously, hindsight being 2020, and I get to say it.
So I think now that we can look at things and see how they unfolded, the reason that they didn't use hard push, instead they used relentless siege, is that they wanted the counterattack on the rallies, perhaps. Because I think what they did is they made a feint to middle. We noticed they didn't take the buildings. And instead, to get their troops downfield to make this attack, they used the extra march speed from relentless siege in order to get downfield. I think that's what happened. So that was a sort of unconventional use of that ability, I would argue, maybe for the counterattack, but not really, mostly for the march speed, simply to position a bunch of troops, effectively parachuting them behind the enemy lines faster than they could get there. And here we are, with New V chilling with this arc, obelisk under a little bit of pressure, but not sufficient. A little bit of caravanning going on, and also caravan slaying. It is worth mentioning that you do lose what you're holding if your caravaner gets knocked out inside of the caravan, so you never want to let that happen. And will this be a 2-arc game, Drago? Looks like that's what they're going for.
I would say so if it was me in their position, which, I would envy that position, being in the finals of the Grand Prix, the anniversary event, the inaugural Grand Prix. They're just moving it around just to make sure that it's not slain and maybe grabbed in the obelisk there. But it looks like there is a Jadwiga in there as well, so no shenanigans likely to play out for 1V. New V knowing what they've got in their pocket, knowing their value. And speaking of value, insatiable desire being used. Provisions, again, provisions and structures is the name of the game right now. 1V is not going to commit too much here to grab this arc away. They know it's lost. They need to make sure that they heavily invest in a structure game. That's exactly what they're doing. Up 220 points per minute right now with 13 minutes left. You can easily nullify an arc, even especially the second arc being 3,500 points, by really focusing the structure game. Now, New V, very, very solid on the structure game when it comes to holding their own front and also disrupting their opponent. So that's really what New V needs to do. Just grab opponents' points away from their structures, hold as best as possible on your own. Make sure you don't flub up this arc hold and don't mess that up. And this should be in the bag for next gen 1V, New V Team Blue.
Yeah, I mean, both teams signaling we're in the end game now as they send out caravanners here and also activate that insatiable desire, giving them extra march speed on their way to caravans. So this is a very interesting play to see the final stretch of this game with 12 minutes left. The point differential is really the number we've got to be looking at here. So there is a caravan slayer running around. Shrine of War, both of them, being held by 1V right now. The real point moneymaker, however, is going to be those altars. And you can see that caravaner knew what they were doing. They said, okay, wait.
Oh, wow. That was dangerous.
We're really watching it happen here. Eyes are on the tier 1 siege of all places to be. They're juking, zigging, zagging, dodging. Tuck, roll. I don't know if I have any other words.
There's a movie in this somewhere
to describe these
when it comes
maneuvers.
to this. But yeah, I mean, look, 1V is doing exactly what they need to do. They've got 3 altars right now. They've got a Shrine of War, which is helping them from a stat standpoint. You know, speaking of stats, again, I mean, we talked about it earlier. There's nothing really being used from an alliance skill standpoint except for an Insatiable Desire and Hard Push. Those are relatively low point total alliance skills. So, I mean, both of these teams should have some points in the bank for a major fight. I don't think they're going to be used on a mid fight with 8 minutes, 47 seconds until this arc despawns and 11 minutes left in the match. New V will likely capture this in about 3 or 4 minutes, effectively making this a 2 arc match. And I think that will be the end, because once they do that, they'll be able to fully refocus on all these structures and really keep going after 1V. But 1V doing what they need to, right? They have other structures that aren't supposed to be theirs in their team color, continuing to hold that Desert Altar on the top lane. And then going down here at the bottom, I see some T5 Siege running around. I'm not sure what the benefit of that is. Maybe just to, you know, a little more tankiness, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, although we know caravanning is happening, we really want to see on the screen is the altars. That's the big point differentiators. So hopefully the camera will flip over to getting a look at those altars. Even war drums being used at one of those north altars would be sort of the thing we really want to key into right now. Big war drums activation here. Big swarm for New V on this desert altar. This is what we wanted to see. Henry rally, high damage, Nebu secondary, big swarm, Jads, XYs, Hondas, Williams, double C with Caesar. That's a filling march. Man, I mean, if these teams are using them, they must be good, but not what I want to see, really. Hopefully we make our way back to more of the altar views and focus on the altar contention here as opposed to the gatherer shenanigans happening in the backfield. Although we know this is happening, the thing we really need to see is those high point buildings. Altars are where the action's at. 440 points per minute for the team in blue. Arc now moving. 590 points per minute for the team in red. And now we can really marvel at how close this game is. The game is literally 400 points. Okay, that number changing a little bit here as time ticks on. We really need to get a look at these altars. That's where the action is. Although I know it is fun to run around like you're in the Mightiest Governor and sort of watch and pick out the popcorn for the gatherer slaying.
I mean, look at this Joan holding its own against an XY Chiskel. I mean, look, you have to pay attention to that.
They teched out, baby. That Joan, that's like a siege build right there. They know what they're doing.
So hear me out on this, and I was going to say it before the arc was captured because I wanted to look a lot better than I am now, but I think this game is actually going to come down to provisioning, which is, I think, why our esteemed cameraman is looking at all these provisioning marches, because, look, like you said, it's knotted up. It's a 300-point game. Now it's a 300-point game. Structures are even. Points per minute are even. It's going to come down to provisioning with 8.5 minutes left. Who can take away some structure points is going to be critical here. That's going to nullify maybe 100 points here, 30 points there, 80 points here and there. But provisions, I think, are what's actually going to win this game, which, again, with this being such an unconventional match, with having that second march really, that second arc really kind of unconventionally taken by New V, away from 1V having had it, that's really kind of set the pace for the rest of this match, which is we can start using alliance skills while swarming structures now. We can start really using skills that are going to benefit not just the arc game, but also the structure game, which is typically where you're going to be using them anyway. So now 1V doing exactly what they need to do, taking the bottom lane Sky Altar, the bottom lane Shrine of War. I mean, wow, this is going to come down to the wire. It's now, again, still a 400-point game in favor of 1V now, having lost that arc, now gaining the lead. Oh, man, this is good for 1V. I mean, this is going to come down to the wire. And there's some more caravanning.
Let's keep our eyes on those altars, though, hopefully. More caravan slaying going on. We know this is going on in the background, but we really want to watch those structures here, as they're still the more important aspect of how this game will unfold. And 1v, although we haven't seen some of this go down, has gathered a lot of structures in their favor. They've got 2 Shrines of War. They have an equal number of altars, although they took an opposing side altar, and they are ahead. And they've eked out actually almost 1,000 points worth of lead here. So 1v is sort of slowly and steadily pulling ahead of the opposing side. This is significant. The window in which the score can be narrowed is really shrinking here. I mean, 6.5 minutes left. You can still get a building. You can still score big points. But remember, every time one of these buildings switches hands, this is a big point differential. Initially, it stops the team that had it from gaining points, but when you hold it long enough, you're the one gaining points instead of them. So getting these altars at the end and holding them for even 3 minutes is a lot of points on the board. Hard push being activated with 6 minutes remaining just makes a lot of sense. Yeah, rally on the way in here. Probably a Nebu secondary. It's sort of the Attila Takeda of archers. Not quite. You know, there's nothing quite like Attila Takeda. But you can see the counterattack actually slaying those marches. As we see a little more gatherer slaying, which sort of slays me a little bit. But here we are, watching
I
a
think
Joan
these
of
might
Arc
actually be the plays of the
epic.
game, though. These are the plays of the
Play
game.
of the
just-
game.
I'm telling you right now. You're going to look back at these
Chat
provisioning
says.
killing, and this is going to be the play of the game. I'm telling you right now. New V is heavily harassing the 1v provisioners, and New V, I guarantee you, we got 5 minutes left. What? Look, no Stradrago here, okay? 1v is going to lose to New V by a few hundred points because New V is going to gain an extra 1,200 to 1,500 points at the very end with provisions. I guarantee you, because they're going to out-provision 1v on the field. I'm calling it.
I mean, Joan is all over the field, and that's no legendary Joan, although the comedy is quite legendary. Seeing the focus on the provisioning. Now, in fairness, the teams do need to focus on provisioning, and this is absolutely critical to the end game here. We're looking at about 1,000-point game. Now it's 900 points, okay? And that's in favor of 1v in red. So the joke, in some ways, is on New V. They took the arc, they marched it all the way downfield, and yet 1v is still ahead. So they executed this amazing play for that second arc, making it only a 2-arc game. And yet, 1v has managed to get enough points from occupation to be ahead. And that lead, 1,000 points solid now, is really difficult to make up in the remaining 4 minutes. Insatiable Desire will get you to caravans faster. That's solid. We do know teams are caravanning. That is happening. Joan of Arc XY duels all over the board. However, probably the Shrine of War, the altars, are where the real heat is going down. So, there we go.
That
Getting a
XY
look at the
Honda
desert
might actually
altar.
go down to that Joan.
Only for the moment when it flips over. The juicy part's the
That's gonna go
swarm that
red.
leads up to that, though.
That's going to likely go red.
I mean, they're holding on. You know it's good gameplay when they hold on
very.
like that. Wow. I mean, health bar
Jadwiga
so
is
low
strong,
you couldn't
eh?
even see it. Now we switch views. We'll see if that thing flips over in the upper right to see how that concluded. But that's how you sort of know these teams are best of the best. Like when you can hold a garrison like that, and the swarmers go to a fraction of their health bar, and the garrison's at a fraction of the health bar. This is how you know it's really going down. We got
That
a
altar is
1,000
still
point
blue.
game still. Yeah, I mean, it's well held. The obelisk flipped red in the upper
Obelisk, yeah.
left. Kind of exciting to see.
Now might actually
it's
be a
now been
time to
occupied. You can
teleport
now
in.
teleport.
Yeah, you might
Ooh.
actually
Honestly,
maybe teleport to
I
kill the
would
provisioners.
teleport.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, If you kill them while they're marching, what have you accomplished? Like if they're marching home at this point,
there's 2 minutes
doesn't do
left.
anything.
There's 2 minutes left.
You could
They be
harass
out
them
running
off
around.
of a gathering node, maybe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the play. That's the play.
I don't
It's
know.
a 900-point game. It's a 900-point game.
I mean, at this
Every
point,
counts.
At this point, you just pray, Drago. You pray that your countless years, months, days, seconds of practice, and more practice, victories and defeats leading up to this moment all pay off to have eked out the edge you need to get the big win. But with the point gap widening, 1,400, now about 1,500 point of differential between these teams, you've got to start to feel the hype if you're 1v. But remember, chat, these provisioners do not do so casually. They do so with experience and practice, and the majority of these provisions are going to arrive in the final seconds. They're going to try to get every single provision they can before running it home. So now, with 1 minute remaining, we stare at this scoreboard with anticipation for what might be 1v or what might be a new V comeback. And it's hard to say which it will be, but of course you would want to be on the side that's already got the lead, because 30 seconds are about to be on the clock for the remaining time in this matchup, and at that point there's really just not much that you're doing that changes the outcome here. 1,000 point differential. Chat, who's it gonna be? Drop some hype, put it in the chat. 20 seconds remaining. The final moments of the matchup. 1,100 point differential, favoring 1v. 10 seconds remaining until we crown the champion of the anniversary Grand Prix. 3, 2, 1, and it looks like your champion, my friends, is 1v in red, winning the ring. The anniversary Grand Prix winners. Wow, what a matchup.
Yeah, I wanted to be provocative a little bit and put New V on blast there and say, you're going to win. And, they let me down. But 1v securing that victory. And wow, what a match that was. We called it earlier, right? We had a 5,000 point call before the match. We were like, hey, it's going to be 5,000 or less. How about 1,000 or less? I mean, could we have gotten it any more granular than that?
That's how close you want it, baby. That's a close matchup. That was an awesome game. It was exciting to see New V and Blue go for the arc the way that they did. These teams don't make mistakes. They don't do things unintentionally anyways. So it was very intentional that they pop Relentless Siege and they used transport rallies and they went for that arc and it worked, but it wasn't enough. Wow. I mean, it was a cool play.
Yeah. So again, I think Relentless Siege gives the fast capture and the 30% counter attack. I don't think it gives the movement speed. However, I think again, that just really signaled the structure game. And that's really what Nuvi wanted to go after. Now, I think that was a backup. Like they were going for the arc. They needed that arc. We said it earlier. But they also wanted to have that extra boost when they were going against the structures if all things went bad and they lost the arc as well. So could you imagine if they would have went full on the structure game sooner than 1v, allowing 1v to capture that arc, or at least making it more difficult before the I mean, there's just so many different ways this could have played out, but 1,000 points or less means that we got to enjoy a really solid match. I would have expected nothing less from the Grand Prix finals. I think that ultimately the two best teams got here and the two best teams gave us quite a show.
Yeah, they sure did. I mean, coming off of this match, I think teams are going to look a lot more seriously at transport rallies for getting downfield, just to take advantage of all that extra march speed that comes on a rally, as opposed to just marching in the field. And this, of course, is from your Alliance technology. It makes you go just so fast downfield. You can get to these fights faster than your enemy was expecting, because I don't think 1v was expecting that to unfold the way that it did. Although they were expecting probably to win when they got that second arc, they probably were not expecting it to have gone down the way that it did, right? Like,
Yeah.
that is not the sort of outcome you anticipate. We get a look now at the MVP on the screen with an individual of 207,823 points. Hailing from the Kingdom of Galway, this is, of course, a test server where the teams and games are taking place here. Both teams, actually from the Kingdom, 1034. We'll get a look at just a moment in the scoreboard, which will tell the
Looking
tale,
forward to
I
the
think,
summary.
like, how did the provisions go? I want to know the Sev wounds on both sides. Very eager to see what that looks like. Chat says, spoiler alert, MVP was a farm killer. Oh my god. Just the same way you win the Mightiest Governor is the same way that you win the Osiris Anniversary Grand Prix. Low key,
Balanced.
the Mightiest Governor was actually the training that brought them this W. We see the final score, 33,873 for blue, 34,874 for red. Looking at the total kills, it was actually New V doing the work in the open field with about a 4 million advantage. However, when we look at the nitty-gritty here, the occupation score in favor of 1V and 660 points worth of extra provision score for 1V. It looks like a lot bigger deal than you might have thought when we compare that in other matches. Like, they needed all those points. And so although they fell 500 points short on arc captures, they were ahead on occupation and they were ahead on provisions. And it was by enough that it got the job done. Both teams using 31 teleports. What do you think, Drago?
So the thing that stands out to me here is the occupation score. So obviously we were really interested in the provisions and who was going to take that one. 1V taking it, which is actually a little bit surprising. The provision score, it was a 900-point delta in favor of 1V. That almost all came, I think, during that arc fight. That second arc fight where New V was losing structures left and right and was down really to about 4 structures on their own side during that pull away from 1V to secure that arc for the blue team. I think it was basically an even match on the structure game until that happened. And again, this ended up being about a 900-point game. So, I mean, look, this was any butterfly effect thing that could have happened throughout this matchup could have changed the trajectory of it. Blue could have won, red could have won. But ultimately, look, it's all about what happens in that 1 hour. It's all about what's done with what time everybody's been allotted. And 1V did such a great job of stemming that tide, losing the actual arc, but winning the match. Wow, what a matchup that we just witnessed. Both teams using 35 players, by the way, on each side.
Yeah, I think that has to do with sort of manipulating your field position and getting your sub to spawn back in the starting area. Here's the replay. Both teams made the typical push for altars at the start. Of course, that was then met with a play that had the board even and a play again for the arcs in the middle. So we see that arc match unfolding here in the middle. Typical Mystical War Drums play. And the victor ultimately is the team in red. Now, I didn't see if the skills were even on both sides there. So it could be that first arc capture was in part because of a point differential in what was used. And as we see now, altars under contention here. Henry the captain means that was a Henry rally that probably took that thing. Henry Nebu was the rally most commonly used, at least from what I saw. A little bit of Attila Nevsky as well, by the way. Here's the arc that really tipped it all. We see the Heaven's Grace for one team, but not matched by the other. They enjoy their fast walk home, and while this arc carrier thought they were on their way to safety, no. Instead, the blue wave on its way downfield to ambush this arc, take down the carrier, and bring it back to their own side. A maneuver that, yes, it's been done, but is not common to see. And that, however, is exactly what unfolded as this arc makes its way back toward safety for the blue team. So really sneaking an incredible opportunity out from the sort of jaws of victory held by the team in red. Couldn't believe that we saw that unfold, the way that it did here. That arc ultimately making it into a player city, escorted, bringing the match to be insanely close. We saw some incredible antics taking out the structures and the gatherers, but here we are.
Champions.
The champions. 1v
Lovely.
of the first anniversary Grand Prix.
Wow.
Greeted by a
I
slew
never
of
thought I
some
would
of the
see this
best
come.
commanders in the game, baby.
Yeah. I never thought I would see that come. We've been doing this for about 3.5 weeks or so on this Grand Prix tournament, and wow, champion is 1v. They've won the Grand Prix now. They've won Osiris League themselves. They've also won the grand finals of Osiris League multiple times. There's multiple tournaments these guys have won now, another feather in their cap. Congratulations to 1v, and certainly definitely a pleasure on my side, not only casting this match with you, Chisco, but other ones throughout these weeks. And certainly I even got a chance to cast with Bulba last weekend as well. Just getting overall tingly feelings for what's coming up next. And obviously the Osiris League playoffs are coming next week. We're getting some good stuff going on. Chisco, lead us out.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is not the last that we'll see of 1v. Expect to see them perform in Osiris League. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss when that all goes down. Throw a like on the stream. Consider supporting any of the streamers that casted that you saw and enjoyed. That included, as Drago said, himself, me, Redline, Bulbaritos. And thank you all for showing up big to spectate the first ever anniversary Grand Prix and Rise of Kingdoms. The more the game moves toward these esports events, the better in my eyes. So hopefully we'll see more of this and you in the future. Until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom, and we'll see you in the next Osiris stream.